What is up, book nerds? I am Rachel Bateman. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I want to just have a little chat with y'all about what it's like to be a hybrid author. For the sake of this video, I want you to know that hybrid author means having some books self-published and some books traditionally published. I'm not talking about publishing the ebook version yourself and then getting an elusive print-only contract with a publisher. Those contracts have always been very rare and you almost never see them anymore. So I do see authors who are going out with the idea that they're going to be hybrid by printing an ebook and having a publisher pick up the print copy. And that's just not something that's happening as more and more ebook sales are generating a bigger chunk of the revenue for traditional publishers. They're not willing to let go of that portion of the pie. What we do see more often is an ebook exclusive publisher allowing an author to retain print rights and sell print copies of their work, and that's not really beneficial to the author either. I'm not talking about these kind of hybrid contracts though. What I'm talking about today as far as being a hybrid author, I mean choosing to self-publish some books and choosing to traditionally publish other books. I want to talk about my biggest pet peeve when it comes to discussing hybrid authorship and give a couple tips if this is the kind of career you would like to pursue. So I'm going to jump right in with what people are waiting for, and that is the pet peeve. This is a little bit of a rant, but not really. So just bear with me, because I see a lot of videos about hybrid publishing here on YouTube, and I see blog posts, and most of those come from people who are not currently hybrid authors, but they want to be. And what I see is author A says, if you want to be a hybrid author, pursue traditional publishing first. And once you have your books traditionally published and you have an audience and you have a market, then take some titles and self-publish those, and your audience will follow in your self-publishing, and that's how you'll become a successful hybrid author. And then I see author B say, if you want to be a hybrid author, what you should do is self-publish first and really focus on getting your name out there and building an audience and selling your book self-published so you could take that success to New York and get a traditional publishing contract. And that is the best way to become a hybrid author. And the more I dig into these and the more I read and watch and follow these authors that are saying that, what I find is that almost in every single instance, author A, who is saying to traditionally publish first, is a traditionally published author who has yet to self-publish and jump into that hybrid authorship. Where author B, who says self-publish first, is a self-published author who has yet to jump to traditional publishing and become a hybrid author. So what you're seeing over and over again is the path I am taking is the best path. That's how you should do it. I personally self-published first. I knew the book that I was writing at the time would be one I wanted to self-publish, so I pursued that path. And then my next book, I knew I wanted to pursue traditional, so I did that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's the best way or the way to become a hybrid author. All you need to become a hybrid author is to have some books that are self-published and some books that are traditionally published. So my tips for hybrid authorship are to, one, make it a book by book or genre by genre thing. And what I mean by that is if you self-publish a book, you have self-published that book. Don't expect that you're going to self-publish that book and then get it picked up by a New York traditional publisher and have it be big that way. Once you've decided to self-publish it, that is the path you are taking for that book. And it goes the same for traditional publishing. Once you've decided to traditionally publish a book, focus on that path for that book. Yes, there are instances of getting your rights back after you have traditionally published a book so you can then self-publish it. And there are definitely instances of not selling a book traditionally and deciding to self-publish it after that. But what I mean by making it a book by book choice is really mentally lock yourself into the path you're taking for a book. Once you decide which way you want to go, put your energy and your focus there. And my reason for this is, one, if you want to self-publish, go for it, make it good, do it professionally, and put it out there. But if you don't put your mental focus on the fact that that is going to be a self-published book, you'll end up second-guessing yourself. And I know this because I see the posts in writing groups on Facebook all the time. People, I was planning this path for my book, but now I just don't know. Should I do this instead? Which way should I take this book? And you know, it's okay to get advice from others, but once you make a decision on where you think the book will work best and what you think the best path for it is, focus your energy on that, not on second-guessing your choice. Same with pursuing traditional publishing. If you decide that this particular book would be a better fit for traditional publishing, really focus your energy and your efforts on that path. Because what I see even more than people who self-publish and then second guess and say, maybe I should have traditionally published this book, are people who set on the path to traditionally publishing and then post, hey, I really wanted to traditionally publish this book and pursue that path, but querying seems very hard. It seems like it's going to take a long time. Submissions are rough. Should I just self-publish it? Should I just toss it out there and self-publish it? And it's really easy to want to shift and go down that path because self-publishing is very simple. I won't say it's easy because there is a lot of work and energy put into it, but it is simple. And you are the deciding factor. You don't have to wait for an agent to agree to represent you. You don't have to wait for a publisher to buy your book. So I see so many people who talk about they really thought this book would do well, traditionally publishing, or this has always been their dream, but when they get stuck on that first snag and it starts to get hard, should I just jump to self-publishing instead? Now, there is nothing wrong with taking a book that you have really exhausted your resources on traditionally publishing and you still feel strongly there's a market for the book and it'll do well, and then shifting to self-publishing. But be honest with yourself. Are you shifting to self-publishing because you feel like the market is there in the indie world more than you're finding a market in the traditional world? Or are you shifting because things got hard and they're taking too long and you're just jumping over? If you want to be a hybrid author, part of that is when you're working on your traditional titles, you are on someone else's timeline. You do have to wait for your traditional publisher. You do have to wait for an agent. You do have to work within an existing publication schedule. You don't get to set your own dates. So if that's not something that you're willing to do, self-publishing all the way is the way for you. But the important point I'm trying to make here is take it book by book. Each title, as you write it, really come up with a plan for what you want to do with it. Don't just take it all willy-nilly and say, well, I'm going to try to traditionally publish, but if it doesn't work, I'll self-publish everything. Or I'm just going to throw a bunch of stuff up on Amazon, and if something does well, then I'm going to try to sell to New York with it because I'll have big numbers. Really make a plan for each title and what you want to do. My second tip for hybrid publishing has to do with that. I will put it up on Amazon and hope it sells a lot so you can take it to New York. And that is, don't. Don't hope for that because that is so rare. Don't expect to be able to self-publish a title to launch your traditional career. Unless you are selling astronomical numbers, New York doesn't care about your self-published book. But that actually works really well into tip number 3, and that is New York doesn't care about your self-published book. That means if we go back to the traditionally published first or self-published first, it means it does not matter. The overwhelming advice I see over and over again from traditionally published authors who say you should traditionally publish first before you self-publish in order to become a hybrid is that you don't want to self-publish first because if you have bad sales numbers with your self-published book, it will hurt your chances of a traditional career. Now, I obviously can't speak for every author, agent, or editor out there, but I can share my personal experience with this, and that is when I queried someone else's summer and I entered Pitch Madness and all of that, not one person along the way cared at all about 99 Days of LANEY MACGUIRE. Not one agent, not one editor. Nobody cared. They knew it existed. They knew it was self-published. They did not care. They did not ask for sales figures. They did not want to know how much it sold because when you query a book to an agent and when your agent submits to a publisher, unless you are one of those self-published authors that has major, huge sales, in which case publishers are probably actually coming to you already, they don't care. They don't care if you sold nothing. They don't care if you sold a couple hundred copies. They don't care. All they care about is this book that the author is querying me now something I like, something that is good, and something I can sell? That's all they care about. They care about the book you are querying them right now. So if you want to pursue this hybrid author career and you feel like your book you're working on now is better suited for self-publishing, don't feel like you have to hold it back until you have a traditional career. The idea that you have to be published one way or the other first before breaking into being a hybrid author is crap. It is utter crap. You can do it whichever way suits you best. I will say that once my traditional debut was on the market, I did see an uptick of sales for my self-published novel without any additional advertising or publicity on my end, because the traditional market does have a big reach and they have a different reach than I could get by myself as a self-published author. So people seeing my name and reading someone else's summer led them to 99 Days of LANEY MACGUIRE, and I did see an uptick there. But I do still see that my audience for my self-published book and my audience for my traditional book are kind of different audiences. If you write young adult like I do, know that the vast majority of young adult indie readers are adults who read young adult, where the vast majority of teenagers, if you're trying to reach actual teens, read traditional because they still read most of their books in physical form from schools, libraries, and the bookstore, not ebooks. So there is that to consider. Your audiences might not overlap a ton no matter which way you do it, but they will some, assuming you're using the same name for both your traditional and your self-published works. My fourth tip for hybrid authors is to make sure you pay very, very close attention to your traditional contract. And whether you want to self-publish or not, you really should be paying close attention to your contract, obviously, to make sure it is working out in your favor. But if you want to continue a self-publishing career or have a side career self-publishing or whatever, really make sure you're paying attention to the verbiage of your contract. Often there will be clauses in your contract that actually prohibit self-publishing. That is a part of a very standard boilerplate contract for a lot of publishers. So you need to make sure you're paying attention to that, because if you want the option to self-publish as well, you need to make sure you and your agent negotiate those clauses so you are open to do that. Tip number 5 for hybrid authors is to really communicate with your traditional publisher. You can work hand in hand and make this a beneficial experience for both of you. When Someone Else's Summer was getting ready to release, my publisher allowed me to put the first chapter of Someone Else's Summer at the back of the 99 Days of LANEY MACGUIRE ebook and put that out there with my self-published title. Work hand in hand with them. See if you can do things like this to kind of really take the two sides of your career and mesh them together and make them work as one. And my last tip, number 6 for being a hybrid author, and I have touched on this a bit early in the video, but I really want to reiterate it, that is, do not self-publish something you want to see traditionally published. Do not do it. And this includes series. Do not self-publish the first 1 or 2 books of a series if you would like to see the series picked up by a traditional publisher. They are interested in new material, in new series, in new books. They want something fresh. So if you want something to go the traditionally published route, do that. Focus on that, and don't look at self-publishing that title. Once it's published, it's published. It's done, and that is the route you're taking. I understand that there are exceptions to this rule. You can tell me all about them in the comments if you want, but that's nothing I've not heard before. I am not doing this video to talk about the exceptions to the rule. I am doing the video to help you plan your hybrid author career. And the best advice I could give for that is to not self-publish anything that you want to have traditionally published. Pick the route you want for each book and really follow it to the end. All right, y'all, thank you for following along with this little discussion / rant about hybrid authorship. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Let me know what you think. Have you considered being a hybrid author? Is this a path that you would like to take for yourself? I really enjoy it, and while I am focused mostly on my traditional career right now, that's primarily because of time constraints. I would like to self-publish again in the future. I really enjoyed that route as well. I feel like being a hybrid author is a really great way to diversify your career. So if you have the desire, I really suggest trying and going for it. Just be smart about how you do it. Make a plan. Don't just throw things out all willy-nilly and see what sticks where. Really nurture and curate your career so you know which projects are best for which avenue and can follow them that way. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you know the drill. Give me a thumbs up and go ahead and subscribe down below if you haven't already. I am Rachel Bateman. I will see you back here next week.